There's something strange about effort. We're told from childhood that if we just try hard enough, push through, grind relentlessly, we will succeed. Work more hours, train harder, study longer, and eventually we will get what we want. But what if this is wrong? What if pushing too hard, trying too much actually makes things worse? What if effort, when excessive, becomes the very thing that blocks us from what we want? This goes against everything we are taught, yet it is one of the deepest truths of life. Musashi, the legendary swordsman, understood something that most people never realize. He saw that effort, when forced, becomes clumsy. That trying too hard in battle makes you stiff, slow, predictable. In that obsession with winning leads to defeat. He mastered the art of doing things without forcing them, what many call effortless effort. And this is not just about sword fighting. This is about everything. The harder you try to impress someone, the more desperate you seem. The more you obsess over success, the more you push it away. The more you force happiness, the more miserable you become. The more you try to control every detail of life, the more chaotic everything feels. Why does this happen? Why does effort, the thing we are told will save us, so often destroy us instead?
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
The answer lies in tension. When you try too hard, you create tension mentally, physically, emotionally. You grip too tightly. You overthink. You overanalyze. You become rigid. And the more rigid you are, the more you break. Imagine a tree in the wind. A tree that refuses to bend will snap. A tree that sways with the wind will survive. This is why the best fighters are relaxed, not tense. This is why the greatest musicians play with flow, not stiffness. This is why the most charismatic people are effortless, not rehearsed. Tension is resistance, and resistance blocks flow. Think about the moments in life when things went perfectly. When you felt completely in sync, when everything just worked. Were you forcing it? Or were you in a state of flow where effort felt natural? Now think about the times when everything fell apart. Were you relaxed? Or were you trying too hard, gripping too tightly, obsessing over every detail? The difference is night and day. Musashi understood that true mastery comes not from forcing but from allowing. He trained endlessly, but he did not fight with tension. He moved with his opponent, not against them. He did not swing his sword with brute force, but with precision and flow. He was not desperate to win, and because of this, he rarely lost. This principle applies to everything: business, relationships, creativity, even happiness itself. The more you try to force something, the more resistance you create. And the more resistance you create, the more likely you are to fail. But wait, does this mean we should stop trying? Just let life happen without effort? No. This is where people misunderstand. The problem isn't effort itself. The problem is excessive, unnatural effort, the kind that comes from fear, from desperation, from obsession. Imagine swimming. If you thrash and panic, you sink. But if you relax and move smoothly, you float. The same applies to life. Effort is needed, but it must be the right kind of effort. Effort that flows, not effort that fights against the current. Look at relationships. If you chase someone too hard, they pull away. If you desperately try to make someone like you, they sense the desperation and lose interest. Charisma is not about forcing people to like you. It's about being so comfortable with yourself that they naturally gravitate toward you. The harder you try to be liked, the more awkward you seem. The less you try, the more natural everything becomes. Look at success. The people who succeed are not the ones who obsess over it every second. They work hard, but they are not desperate. They take action, but they do not grip too tightly. They are persistent, but they trust the process. The ones who fail are often the ones who become obsessed, who try to control every variable, who panic when things don't go perfectly. Musashi would say, move forward, but do not grasp. Act, but do not force. Look at happiness. The more you chase happiness, the more it escapes you. People try to buy it, to force it, to demand it, but happiness does not come from gripping it. It comes when you stop chasing and start living. It comes in moments of flow, not in moments of desperation. This is why people who obsess over being happy are often the most miserable. They are constantly measuring, constantly checking, constantly trying too hard, and this very effort ruins the thing they are chasing. So what is the solution? How do we stop trying too hard without becoming lazy? How do we work toward what we want without falling into the trap of excessive effort? The answer is simple, but difficult: relaxed discipline. Work, but do not strain. Move forward, but do not become desperate. Train, but do not tighten. Be serious, but do not be stiff. This is what Musashi mastered: the balance between discipline and flow, between effort and ease, between action and surrender. This is why the best athletes talk about being in the zone. They are working, they are competing, but they are not forcing it. They are flowing. The best speakers do not recite a script word for word, they adapt, they move with the moment. The best negotiators do not force a deal, they create the conditions for it to happen naturally. The best artists do not grip their brush with tension, they let the strokes happen. They trust their instincts. This is what separates masters from amateurs. And this is what separates those who succeed in life from those who struggle endlessly. The world tells you that success is about grinding non-stop, about forcing results, about pushing as hard as possible. But the truth is, success comes to those who understand timing, who know when to push and when to ease off, who recognize that gripping too tightly suffocates what they are trying to grow. A farmer does not pull on a plant to make it grow faster. He waters it, gives it sunlight, removes weeds, but he does not force it. Life works the same way. So ask yourself, where in your life are you trying too hard? Where are you gripping too tightly, creating resistance, holding on with desperation? Are you forcing success, forcing relationships, forcing happiness? And what would happen if you did what Musashi taught, if you moved with precision, but without tension? If you acted with intensity, but without desperation? If you worked hard, but without fear? This is where true power comes from. Not from brute force, not from obsession, but from controlled effort, from work that flows, from action without tension, from discipline without stiffness. The greatest swordsman in history did not win by trying harder than everyone else. He won because he understood the balance between effort and ease, between force and flow, between pushing and letting go. And this is not just a lesson in sword fighting. This is a lesson in life itself. Musashi understood that the difference between success and failure is not just effort, but the kind of effort. Most people think that if they fail, the answer is to push harder, to double their effort, to grind until something breaks. But what if what breaks is them? What if the very act of trying harder is the thing that guarantees failure? A swordsman who swings with too much force loses his balance. A businessman who chases money too aggressively loses trust. A person who desperately seeks love drives others away. The world rewards those who work, but it does not reward those who try desperately. Desperation is tension, and tension is the enemy of mastery. Look at the greatest performances in sports, music, business, or any field. The best are not the ones who seem like they are trying the hardest. They are the ones who make it look effortless. They are not stiff, they are fluid. They are not forcing things, they are allowing things to happen. And yet, this does not mean they are lazy. They have trained more than anyone else, but they have learned the difference between effort that helps and effort that destroys. This is what separates a master from a beginner. The beginner thinks more effort is always better. The master knows that too much effort is the same as too little. Think about a time when you were truly in sync, when everything flowed naturally. Were you overthinking? Were you forcing things? Or were you simply acting, moving, responding without unnecessary effort? Now think about a time when everything went wrong. Were you relaxed? Or were you gripping too tightly, trying too hard, desperate for control? This is the difference. Success is not about pushing harder. It is about knowing when to push and when to let go. It is about knowing the right amount of effort and stopping before it turns into tension. Musashi would say that the way you hold a sword matters. Grip it too loosely, and you lose control. Grip it too tightly, and you become slow, rigid, predictable. The balance is everything. The same is true for life. Hold too loosely, and you never commit. Hold too tightly, and you strangle the very thing you are trying to grow. Relationships fail because of this. Success slips away because of this. Happiness becomes impossible because of this. The world is full of people who are gripping too tightly, trying too hard, working themselves into exhaustion, convinced that if they just push a little harder, everything will work out. But they never stop to ask if the effort itself is the problem. People who chase happiness never find it. People who demand respect never get it. People who are desperate for success rarely achieve it. The reason is simple. Energy attracts energy. Desperation repels. Confidence attracts. Trying too hard signals that you do not believe in yourself, that you do not trust the process, that you are afraid. And fear is weakness. Musashi did not fight with fear. He fought with clarity. He did not waste energy. He did not swing wildly. He did not grip too tightly. He moved naturally, efficiently, precisely. This is why he won. Think about the people you admire. Are they tense? Are they desperate? Or do they move through life with a sense of calm control? The greatest leaders, the greatest athletes, the greatest performers, they are not panicked, not gripping too tightly, not forcing things. They train hard, they prepare, but when the moment comes, they trust themselves. They do not second guess, they do not hesitate, they do not try too hard. They simply do. This is what separates winners from losers. Losers think effort alone is enough. Winners know that effort must be controlled, directed, measured. This is why overthinking destroys performance. The more you think, the slower you become. The more you try to control every detail, the more mistakes you make. A fighter who hesitates gets hit. A speaker who overthinks sounds unnatural. A musician who tries too hard loses the rhythm. The best performances happen when effort disappears, when things happen naturally. And yet, this is not because effort is missing. It is because effort has been transformed into skill, into instinct, into something that no longer requires force. Musashi trained endlessly, but when he fought, he did not think about every movement. He simply moved. He had trained so much that effort was no longer needed. This is true in every field. The best actors do not seem like they are acting. The best entrepreneurs do not force success. The best relationships do not come from effort, but from connection. The moment tension enters, things begin to fall apart. The moment effort becomes forced, failure begins. Think about relationships. People who are desperate for love rarely find it. They try too hard, they do too much, they grip too tightly, and this makes them unattractive. Charisma is not about forcing people to like you. It is about being so comfortable with yourself that others feel comfortable around you. The harder you try to be liked, the more awkward you seem. The less you try, the more natural everything becomes. People can sense desperation. They can sense tension. They can sense when someone is forcing things, and they pull away. Think about money. The people who are obsessed with money, who chase it aggressively, who try to force success, often struggle the most. The ones who succeed study, work, improve, but they are not desperate. They do not grip too tightly. They understand that forcing things often destroys them. They make intelligent moves, but they do not panic. They take action, but they do not fear failure. They are not reckless, but they are not stiff either. This is why they win. Think about sports. A fighter who is too tense gets tired faster. A runner who is too stiff slows down. A gymnast who overthinks falls. The body works best when it is relaxed but focused. Too much effort creates resistance. Too much force creates mistakes. This is why the best performers have learned to stay loose while staying strong. They have discipline, but they are not rigid. They have effort, but they do not force. This is the balance that creates greatness. Musashi would say that the way you approach anything is the way you approach everything. If you grip too tightly in one area of life, you likely grip too tightly in others. People who are desperate for success are often desperate in relationships. People who are too tense in business are often too tense in personal life. The way you do one thing is the way you do everything. If you want to master life, you must learn to master effort itself. This does not mean being lazy. This does not mean avoiding work. It means understanding that effort alone is not enough. It means realizing that trying too hard often makes things worse. It means knowing when to push and when to let go. It means training hard but fighting with flow, working hard but living with ease, taking action but not forcing results. This is what separates those who struggle from those who succeed. Look at nature. Water does not force its way through obstacles. It moves around them. It flows. And over time it wears down even the hardest rock. This is how power works. Not through brute force, but through persistence without tension. The strongest things are not the stiffest. They are the most adaptable. The tree that bends survives the storm. The tree that refuses to bend is the first to break. Where are you gripping too tightly? Where are you trying too hard, forcing things, creating resistance? What would happen if you moved with precision but without tension? If you acted with intensity but without desperation? If you worked hard but without fear? This is where real power comes from. Not from brute force, not from obsession, but from controlled effort. Effort that flows, effort that does not destroy itself, effort that does not grip too tightly. This is what Musashi understood. This is why he never lost.